Good to meet you here again. We're continuing on in our Philippians series here, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I'm Pastor Brenda. Again, this is great to see you. We are here talking about joy again, specifically Philippians 4, verses 4 through 5. But tonight we're going to go into like the science of joy, and you are going to be amazed. So much of this is so much common sense. And here, Paul's been talking about this common sense all the way through Philippians. And I'm just going to dare you that once you understand the science of joy, and then you see it here, what we're talking about, and the conversations you're going to have with your people, this is my dare. I think you're going to read the Bible differently when you come across joy verses in the Bible. So we're just where we're at in Philippians is always be full of joy in the Lord, and I say it again, rejoice. Or you may know that verse this way, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Same verse, one's a song. And verse 5, let everyone see that you are considerate in all you do. Remember the Lord is coming soon. There is a reason why I think Paul goes right into seeing each other when he's talking about joy here and being joy all the time. So, begin. We have this God-given authority to lead our brains. We have a whole series here on what this God-given authority is. But in short, 2 Corinthians 10:5 teaches us we destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. Or the NIV, you may have heard it taught this way, says we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. That verse right there says God has given us the authority to lead our brains. Then there's this verse in Philippians 4:8. We're going to talk more about this verse coming up. But this verse says, fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. If we weren't given this God-given authority to lead our brains, we can't fix our thoughts. So you have been given this authority over your brain, and it's God-given authority. You are more than what your brain believes. You are a soul designed by God. Now, beginning here with some science, we know that our brain has got two halves. There's the right brain and the left brain, right? And here you might want to be thinking of some left brain and right brain jokes. And I just want to say, take those out. Those are jokes. Those are not science. Some of the newer science, or this neuroscience stuff, is showing we all have right and left brains. We're not dominant in each. We each have both sides. And if both sides are working well, we have a fully operating brain that we then have the God-given authority to lead our lives with. So let me begin talking about the left brain, which you have one and I have one. The left brain is commonly thought of as the mind. Left brain dominant functions are logical thinking, problem solving, strategies, language, cause and effect relationships, words to our experiences, planning, arguments, formulated, and truth defended. A lot of concrete operations there, a lot of problem solving there. Without truth, like, we would all be lost. That seems to be a foundational principle, and our left brain is where we process the truth that goes on. So we need our left brains to be fully functioning. Beliefs and doctrine in a church are left brain, but they are created from knowing the relational love of God, and that is in our right brains. More on that. Right brain action is our brains are continually scanning our surroundings, looking for people who are happy to be with us. We've been talking throughout this entire series that one of the aspects of joy involves faces. This is actually a neurological definition of joy, where our brains are reading faces and they give us joy. So the right brain governs our emotions and awareness of our bodies. The right brain functions begin with our important relational attachments and are intended to help us be ourselves in our relationships. And here's that attachment science we've mentioned in previous messages here at our church. Some of us, we come to God with secure attachment. We come to our relationships here with secure attachment because we have our right brains are operating very well. Well, let me pause for a moment. The science, I'm not a scientist. I learned my science from people who teach me how to read it at a simpler level. So I'm just going to, I got this science out of this really great book called The Other Half of Church, written by a scientist. And it's a good book, really makes sense. You're going to see this. So some of us struggle with insecure attachment. That would be anxious attachment, shut down attachment, or shame-filled attachment. And faces matter when it comes to our attachment. We talked about attachment theory a couple of series ago. We used the still face experiment. And this is a video, you can look it up on YouTube. This is a video of a mom looking at her baby, and she's engaged, full face, full joy, looking at her baby, and the baby's engaged back, full face. You know, there's just eye-to-eye contact and joy contact and giggling contact. And then the mom goes still-faced. And the baby's trying to get the mom's attention back. And trying and doing things to get the mom to just break that gaze and to get the joy back on her mom's face. And finally the baby just breaks down and is crying because that still face is not giving the baby security anymore. Okay? This is a right brain function. The right brain reads faces so that our left brain knows how to process. Some of you believe, just want to say that God has got a still face towards you. And no matter how much attention you try to give to God, you feel like he doesn't break that. This is this insecure attachment, and it's real. It's real. So the right brain governs the whole range of our relational life. It's who we love, our emotional reactions to our surroundings, our ability to calm ourselves, our identity, both as individuals and who we are in a community, manages our strongest relational connections, both to people and God, and character formation. Let's remember that character formation here at the end. So I'm going to put a picture on the screen. You won't see my face for a little bit here. This is how the brain basically works. The right side of our brain begins processing our surroundings and draws conclusions before the left side is even aware of what is happening. This is, according to science, this is creating our reality at 6 times per second. This is faster than we can become conscious of what is actually happening around us. The left side samples at 5 times a second. So basically, we know things faster than we can put words to things. Where have you felt that before, right? So I sent these notes, these science notes, processing this big thought to my son Kenneth, who is serving time in prison. And I just want you to think of his situation. He's living in high anxiety all the time because it's a prison situation. And faces matter in a prison. Seeing my face in visitation day brings him joy that lasts for quite a while. There's a whole lot about this faces thing. So when I had him look at this science, and I was breaking it down how Paul talks about joy in Philippians as a comma throughout the entire book, and this science, this is what he wrote back. Again, think of his situation. A lot of us in here are guilty of drawing an inaccurate conclusion of a situation before our brain consciously picks up on the event that is taking place. That 6-second delay is crucial in the brain science. Some of us sound like kooks when we tell the story of an event that has multiple witnesses and the witnesses have different versions of what truly happened. This type of thing happens all the time. And you're saying, you know what he's talking about, right? And you're not living in prison in that high anxiety situation, and yet all the time your brain is processing faster than there are words, and all these misunderstandings happen, right? The left brain runs at the speed of words, and the right brain runs at the speed of joy. And this tick faster, this difference helps us interpret the world wiser. I'm going to give you some more here. Brain science reveals that this joy sensation is crucial for emotional and relational development. Our brain looks specifically to the face of another person to find joy, and this fills up our emotional gas tank so our left brain can translate the world better. And the face here is key. They found out that joy is primarily transmitted through face, especially through the eyes, secondarily through the voice. So when we are the sparkle in someone's eyes, their face lights up with a smile when they see us, and we feel joy. So when you are having coffee with your friend, and you may be discussing something deep and painful, but you just were face to face with your friend for a while, when you're leaving that coffee, your heart is still warm with joy. You're feeding your brain, and then your left brain is knowing how to problem solve that situation you were just talking so deeply about. When you're in a crowd and you're by yourself and you scan in the crowd to see if you know anyone, and if you get that moment when you recognize someone's face, your face lights up, his or her face lights up, and all of a sudden in that crowd, you feel safer. You feel connected. You're still in the same crowd. It's still that crowd, but all of a sudden, someone knows your face, and you feel safer. Again, the joy has gone in. Now your left brain can process, and you feel safety in that situation. When you pray for your friends, don't you see the faces of your friends as you pray for them? And you can be praying for some really, again, painful situation that you're just interceding to God for on their behalf. But yet you're seeing their faces and you're feeling joy at being able to pray for such an impossible situation, because that joy is filling you up. And again, helping your left brain. How deeply do you feel when you look into a picture of someone who you love, who has now passed away? But just looking at that picture and looking at that face of someone you love so much fills you with joy, even though they're no longer in your life, right? When I preach, when we preach here on Friday nights, there are certain faces in our crowd that I look for every week. Their light, their nods, their question mark, all those faces encourage me to continue on every week. There are certain faces I rely on being here. It's in the face, helps me process my left brain to continue on. When you feel lonely, you feel unseen. Think about that. You feel unseen, there's less joy, your left brain starts thinking some scattered thoughts, right? How about think back to when you were in school, or if you're still in school. And school can be a place where your left brain, all that problem solving and cause and effect can be just so jumbled because of anxiety or fear and just stuff and time and pressure. But did you have a teacher where you went in his or her classroom, this teacher saw you every day? And in that classroom, you knew you could be smart. This teacher looked at you, talked to you, validated you, and you looked forward to that class because for one moment you felt like you belonged somewhere in this school building, and this teacher knew that you might have some worth to you. It's a face, right? This face, this joy that this teacher gave you, helped the left brain operate better. See what I'm saying? During the pandemic, we didn't see a lot of faces, so we learned how to Zoom, right? We needed to see faces to cope through the pandemic. This church began in the pandemic, and now we meet through Zoom because it's a good story. And then there are those faces, there's those faces you love so much that when you see them, no matter how bad your day has been, you see that face, oh, your heart swells. There's a sense of calm. You even feel it in your shoulders, that stress releases because of that face fills you with joy. And then you might realize it now, that left brain kicks in. And all of a sudden, the bad day, you can start figuring it out and you can start problem solving it better. Just because you're with some faces that you love so very much. I want to take this further with you. Is your mind going, wow, wow, wow? Oxytocin is released when we have eye contact with others. Oxytocin is shown in research to lower our stress and our anxiety. Okay, the more eye contact, less stress, less anxiety. Oxytocin has the power to regulate our emotional responses and pro-social behaviors, including trust, empathy, gazing, positive memories, processing of bonding cues, and positive communication. The source of that is on our church website. That's some science there I just read. Oxytocin does all that. Eye contact, joy to the right brain, gets over to the left brain, and you can process all that. We don't see faces of our social media friends. Social media does the exact opposite of face-to-face contact. Science has discovered, and you've probably read these stories because we know what our phones are doing to us. Science has discovered that social media is linked to heightened levels of cortisol, or the stress hormone, and dopamine addiction. Both of those cause us to have more stress in our lives. Great. There's a lot of stress in our lives, don't we? We feel anxiety in between the hits of dopamine, which are produced when we have likes or something going on in our social media feeds. You know what I'm talking about, the dopamine hits from social media. Social media literally rewards us for being contentious, which then decreases our social skills. Do you find yourself communicating differently if you can't look someone in the eyes? Is it easier to be mean over the phone when you used to make phone calls? Or particularly now, is it easier to be mean on social media? Instead, if you had to look somebody eye to eye to have that confrontation? See what I'm talking about? With our faces in our phones, we as a people are experiencing less joy. We're in our homes. We have our faces in our phones, not with our family members. There's more stress in the home. There's more anxiety in the home. We have our faces in our phones. We all know that the divided culture we live in right now has risen from the tools of social media. Blame the algorithms, blame the echo chamber, but also, is this why? Because we were seeing less faces of people. We're receiving less joy for our right brain to activate to help operate our left brain. Think about that. The human brain is designed to look for and run on joy. God designed our brains like this. My joy drops when I sense few faces are shining on me and few people are happy to be with me. Our brains are designed to run on joy like a car runs on fuel. Now, I just gave you a lot of science there, but I want you to think back through Philippians, been reading how Paul uses joy as a comma throughout this book. He mentions Timothy and Epaphroditus, and he mentions joy because he's thinking of their faces. He does a teaching for the people in the Philippian church, and he sees their faces. I'm sure when he's writing this letter to them from his dire situation in prison, he's seeing their faces, and he mentions joy. And there's joy throughout the entire Bible, but I want to think specifically of the Psalms. When joy is mentioned, put the science to it. So, joy is mentioned we're going to talk about that next time, so pause on that one. So here's your conversation question to have with the group. Are you with people? Because you want to talk about this. I just gave you a lot of stuff. You hope your brain is going crazy with joyful thoughts and thinking of how this joy is faster than your left brain. The more joy, the better your brain operates, the better your life operates. Talk about that with your people. Just anything. Just talk about what is going crazy in your head right now with all this science. I'll be right back. All right, I just want to give you one other big thought about joy, Philippians, and we're doing this together as a church. At least, it's how we're doing this together as a church. Like we talked about in the beginning, character formation is often a church responsibility. Remember, character formation is a right brain function. But the church tends to love left brain stuff like prayer and Bible reading. Okay? But joy is the fuel that our right brain needs to help us with that prayer and Bible reading. You tracking with me? I think Paul figured this out by using joy to transition all of his teachings, his corrections in Philippians with joy every time, because there's so much joy and they could receive it better with coming from a joyful message. Joy must be a part of the church. How often have you experienced joy in the church? And there have been times when you have just felt like it was a drudgery to be in church. Where was the joy missing? Were there faces missing as a part of that worship? So this is the question I want you to think about and talk about with your people. What happens to your soul and your stamina for the week when you experience joy in church? How does this affect your faith the rest of your time? Have that conversation. Philippians 4:4-5 again. Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Why? Get this right brain operating well, so your left brain can be operating well, and you're leading your brain, and you're in the fullest, best self of you. Let everyone see that you're considerate in all you do, and remember the Lord is coming soon. Your best brain that you're leading with your God-given authority will bring us more faces in heaven, because Jesus is returning. Joy. Joy is the foundation of all of this. I have more to teach about joy because we're in Philippians 4, and Philippians 4 is full of this. So may you, for this time, may your brain be spinning of how it works this way. And may you find joy this week. May you find faces this week. May you get your face out of your phone, so your right brain can operate on its fuel, so your left brain is fully doing all those complex operations. And that is my prayer for you. What a scientific, what a wonderful prayer, so that your faith can grow this week. That's it. Find your joy. Find the faces in your life. In the name of Jesus, amen.